My parents took out a loan in my name without telling me. Now they expect me to pay it off. I always knew my parents had a complicated relationship with money. Growing up, I watched them spend recklessly, splurging on things we couldn't afford, then scrambling to cover overdue bills at the last minute. But somehow, no matter how deep they dug themselves into a hole, they always found a way out. Whether it was borrowing from family, taking on new credit cards, or simply ignoring the problem until it went away. I thought I had escaped that cycle. I worked hard, saved every penny, built a solid credit score, and did everything I could to avoid the chaos that had defined my childhood. But none of that mattered when I checked my credit report that day. At first I thought it was a mistake. The numbers didn't make sense. A massive loan, tens of thousands of dollars, sitting in my name, accumulating interest. My heart pounded as I scanned the details, my vision blurring with panic. I hadn't taken out any loans. I had never even considered borrowing that kind of money. But there it was, plain as day. My name, my social security number, my financial ruin. I called the bank immediately, my fingers trembling as I punched in the numbers. "Thank you for calling First National Bank. How can I assist you today?" "There's a loan on my account that I never applied for," I said, my voice shaking with barely contained fear. "I need to report fraud." A pause. The clicking of a keyboard. "Let me pull up your account." "Ah, yes. The personal loan from 2 years ago, taken out by you and co-signed by..." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. My mother's name. No, that wasn't possible. There had to be a mistake. Maybe someone had stolen my identity and somehow used her information. Maybe... "I didn't sign anything," I blurted out. "I never agreed to this. How was this approved without my consent?" "Well," the representative said, hesitant, "the loan was processed online with electronic signatures. It appears all the necessary documents were provided. If you believe this was fraud, you'll need to file a dispute and potentially press charges against the co-signer." Press charges. Against my own mother. The reality of the situation crashed down on me like a tidal wave. I hung up without another word, my heart racing as I tried to make sense of it all. I needed to hear it from them. I needed to know why. I drove straight to my parents' house, my grip so tight on the steering wheel that my knuckles turned white. Every scenario played in my head. Maybe they had been scammed. Maybe they had made some kind of clerical mistake. Maybe this wasn't as bad as it seemed. I walked into the house without knocking. My father was in his usual spot on the couch, remote in hand, barely acknowledging me as I entered. My mother glanced up from the kitchen table, where she was flipping through a pile of mail, completely unfazed. "You took out a loan in my name," I said, my voice sharp and unsteady. My mother didn't even flinch. "Ah," she said, as if I had asked about the weather. "You found out." My father grunted, still staring at the TV. I blinked. "That's all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say?" She sighed, setting the mail down. "We needed the money. You weren't using your credit for anything important, and we figured you could handle it better than we could." "Handle it?" My voice cracked. "You stole from me. You forged my signature." She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. We were going to pay it back eventually." "Eventually?" My head spun. "It's been 2 years. You haven't made a single payment, and now my credit is trashed." "Well, you're young. You'll recover," my father muttered, finally acknowledging me. "Stop acting like it's the end of the world." I laughed bitterly, disbelief mixing with rage. "You ruined my financial future and you don't care." "Of course we care," my mother said, standing up. "That's why we've been waiting for you to step up and start making payments." I stared at her, unable to comprehend what I had just heard. "You want me to pay off the loan you took out?" "Well, you have a steady job," she said, her tone almost bored. "We don't, and family helps family, right?" I felt something inside me snap. "You don't get to talk about family when you just used me as your personal piggy bank." My mother's lips thinned. "Watch your tone." "Watch my tone?" I let out a hollow laugh. "You expect me to just roll over and fix your mess?" No, that's not happening. You're going to pay every cent of it back, or I swear I'll press charges for fraud." The moment the words left my mouth, I saw the shift in her expression. The annoyance flickered into something darker. "You wouldn't do that," she said, voice low. "You wouldn't betray your own parents like that." I took a slow, deep breath. You already betrayed me, my father scoffed. You're really going to drag us through the courts? Over some money? Over my future, I shot back. My mother shook her head, looking at me like I was some ungrateful child throwing a tantrum. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. The least you could do is help your own parents when they need it. You didn't ask for help. You stole from me. She crossed her arms. And what exactly do you plan to do? Cut us off? You think you're better than us now? I swallowed down the lump in my throat. I had always known my parents were irresponsible with money. I had known they were selfish. But this was something else entirely. I had spent my whole life believing that if I was good enough, if I worked hard enough, if I proved myself, they would finally see my worth. But now, standing in front of them, I realized the truth. They would never see me as anything more than a resource, a tool, someone to use and discard when it suited them. I turned toward the door. I'm done, my mother scoffed. Oh, don't be so dramatic. You'll come around. I didn't look back as I walked out of the house. But as I drove away, my hands still shaking, I knew this wasn't over. They weren't going to let me go that easily. And I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I had left my parents' house, their words echoed in my mind, a relentless loop of entitlement and manipulation. You'll come around. As if my anger was temporary. As if I would wake up and decide that, yes, I should just quietly accept the financial wreckage they had left in my name. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at my banking app, at the massive debt tied to my name. The interest alone was suffocating. 2 years of unpaid balances, steadily growing while I had been completely unaware. My credit score, once a point of pride, was now in shambles. And my parents expected me to clean up their mess? No, this time I wasn't going to let them win. I grabbed my laptop and started researching. Fraud, identity theft, legal options. Every article, every forum thread I read was both terrifying and enlightening. I had a case, a solid one. My parents had forged my signature. They had taken money in my name without my consent. That was fraud, plain and simple. I could report them. I could press charges. But did I want to? The thought of dragging my own parents into a courtroom made my stomach twist. No matter how angry I was, they were still my parents, the people who had raised me, fed me, clothed me. But at what point did obligation stop? At what point did family stop being an excuse for their actions? I needed advice. I opened my messages and hesitated before typing out a text. Me. Hey, can we talk? It's important. I didn't specify who it was for, but my gut already knew who I was reaching out to. An hour later, I sat across from my cousin Daniel in a quiet cafe. He had always been the black sheep of the family, the one who had distanced himself from the drama, the one who had gotten out. If anyone would understand, it was him. I figured something was up when you texted me out of nowhere, Daniel said, leaning back in his chair. You looked like you saw a ghost when you walked in. I let out a dry laugh. Worse, I saw my credit score. That got his attention. What happened? I told him everything. The loan, the forged signature, the confrontation, the way my parents had brushed it off like I was the one being unreasonable. By the time I was done, Daniel was staring at me, his expression a mix of disbelief and something else, something close to understanding. Yeah, he finally said. That sounds about right. I frowned. What do you mean? He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. I never told you this, but they pulled something similar on me years ago. Not a loan, but they used my name to open a couple of credit cards, ran up a ton of debt before I even realized what was happening. My stomach dropped. What did you do? Paid it off, he said bitterly. I was young, stupid, and just wanted to get away from them. Thought it'd be easier to handle it myself than deal with their excuses. He looked at me sharply. Don't make the same mistake. I gripped my coffee cup, my knuckles turning white. So, what do I do? Daniel leaned forward. You've got 2 options. 1, you can fight this the legal way. File a police report, go through the fraud process, and let the bank handle the rest. But that means pressing charges against them. And trust me, the family won't take your side. They never do. And option 2? You hit them where it hurts, he said simply. You take control of the narrative before they can. You expose them. I swallowed. Expose them? Daniel nodded. They expect you to stay quiet, to let this blow over like I did. But if you make this public, if you put them in a position where they have to fix it or lose their precious reputation, then they'll have no choice but to deal with it. No courtrooms, no drawn-out legal battles, just cold, hard reality. It was a risky move, but maybe that was exactly what I needed. For the first time in hours, I felt something close to clarity. I wasn't going to let them destroy my future. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity that I hadn't felt in days. The storm of betrayal and anger hadn't disappeared, but it had settled into something more focused, something sharper. My parents had spent years manipulating me, using family as a shield to justify their selfishness. But I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Not this time. I got out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and started my plan. If I wanted to force them to fix this without going through the courts, I needed leverage. I needed something that would make them panic the way they had made me panic when I first discovered the loan. I scrolled through old emails, bank statements, anything that could point to a paper trail. If they had forged my signature on a loan, what else had they done? Were there more accounts under my name? More debts I wasn't even aware of? I pulled up my credit report and scanned every line, my stomach tightening with each unfamiliar entry. Then I saw it. A second loan. Not just one, but multiple. They hadn't just taken out a single loan in my name. They had maxed out several lines of credit, racking up thousands of dollars in debt. My name was tied to payments I never made, interest rates that were skyrocketing, and penalties I never even knew existed. My hands clenched into fists. I had been prepared for a fight, but this was a war. I grabbed my phone and dialed Daniel. He picked up on the second ring. That was fast. They took out more loans, I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. Not just one. Multiple A-long silence stretched between us before he finally sighed. Damn. They really don't know when to stop, do they? I laughed bitterly. Apparently not. What's the plan? I hesitated. I knew what I wanted to do, but saying it out loud made it real. I'm going to ruin them. Daniel let out a low whistle. All right. Now we're talking. That evening, I sat at my desk, my laptop open to a blank document. I took a deep breath and started typing. At first, the words came slow, hesitant. But the more I wrote, the more the anger fueled me. I laid everything out, every betrayal, every stolen dollar, every lie. I detailed how they had taken out loans in my name without my knowledge, how they had ruined my credit, how they had expected me to be the one to clean up their mess. And then, I posted it. Not just anywhere. I sent it to the family group chat. I emailed it to distant relatives who only heard my parents' side of things. I shared it on social media. Not for pity, but for accountability. If my parents wanted to keep pretending that they were victims, they wouldn't be able to do it in the shadows anymore. They would have to face the truth, in front of everyone. The reaction was instant. My phone started blowing up within minutes. Aunt Linda, what is this? Is this true? Cousin Mark, dude, this is insane. They actually did this? Then my parents called. I ignored it. They called again. I ignored it. Then came the texts. Mom, how could you do this to us? Take this down right now. Dad, you have no idea what you've done. You're making a mistake. A mistake? No. The only mistake I had ever made was trusting them. I sent them one final text before blocking their numbers. Me. Fix the loans. Pay off every cent. Or the next post won't just be to family. It'll be to the police. The moment I sent that last message, I knew I had shattered whatever fragile illusion my parents had built around themselves. For years, they had manipulated, controlled, and drained me dry under the guise of family loyalty. But now, they were exposed, and no amount of guilt-tripping or fake apologies could undo the damage. I didn't unblock their numbers. I didn't sit around waiting for their response. Instead, I called my lawyer. Let's go all the way, I told him. I want full legal action. Fraud, identity theft, everything we can hit them with. Daniel had been right all along. They weren't just selfish, they were criminals. And I wasn't going to let them walk away from this without consequences. That same night, I filed a police report. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but also the easiest. My parents had stolen from me. They had lied to my face. They had destroyed my credit, my financial future, and any remaining trust I had in them. If I let this go, I'd be telling them it was okay to do it again. The fallout was immediate. Within days, an investigation was launched. My parents were served with legal notices. Their accounts were frozen. Creditors started calling. This time, not for me, but for them. And just like that, the empire of lies they had built crumbled. I heard through the family that they were panicking, that my dad had tried to work something out with the bank, only to realize that his crimes had gone far beyond what he could explain away. My mom had broken down crying when she realized she might actually face charges. I should have felt guilty. I didn't. A week later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Please." My mother's voice came through, shaking. "We can fix this. Just drop the charges. We're still your parents." I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. You weren't my parents when you stole from me. You weren't my parents when you left me drowning in debt. You were only my parents when you needed me to save you. That's not family. We didn't mean for it to get this bad," she stammered. "It was just supposed to be temporary, just a loan to help us get by, and we were going to pay it back." "Then why did you take out multiple loans?" I asked, my voice cold. "Why did you keep lying until I found out on my own?" She had no answer. I let the silence drag on. Then, for the first time in my life, I said exactly what I needed to say. "I'm done." And I hung up. For good. In the months that followed, my life changed. I worked with financial advisors to repair my credit, slowly but surely undoing the damage they had caused. I built a future that no longer revolved around fixing their mistakes. My parents? They lost everything. Their assets were seized. My father was forced to take a plea deal to avoid jail time. And my mother, who had always played the innocent bystander, had to face the fact that she wasn't blameless. As for the rest of the family, some tried to guilt me. Some took my side. In the end, it didn't matter, because I finally understood something. Blood doesn't make a family. Love does. Trust does. Respect does. And they had given me none of it.